All right, so we just finished by creating that cylinder off the left side. I'm going to do another one coming off to the right. So if you didn't get that one, watch carefully and we'll get the second one. So what we did is we had to get Z pointing outward from the face that we intend on constructing the cylinder. So now I need Z to be pointing outward from that face. So if you think ahead and say, okay, this is going to be my 0, 0, this will be my positive X, and this will be my positive Y. So I'm creating that right angle for my X and Y plane, which means Z would really be here pointing outward, is going to be perpendicular. All right, we do that with the 3-point UCS. So let's start by doing that. So I'm clicking 3. And I look at my command prompt and it says, okay, where's the 0, 0? So I'm going to snap to this lower corner. Where's the positive X? And I move along that surface and I click. And where's the positive Y? And I go straight above it and click. And you should see your grid orient to that new plane. All right, so we're basically creating a work plane on the surface that we want to protrude outward. All right, so now I go to the cylinder command, and just be careful how you approach the midpoint. And I'll explain why in a second, but I usually kind of go around, and then I'll hit the midpoint here, and then I'll go around, and I'll touch the midpoint here, and then I'll go across that edge. Oops, went a little too far, and hopefully you can see now they both converge. Okay, so those are critical things you need to do, or otherwise it's not going to work. So as soon as I see them both converge, I click, and then I move outward, and I should see the base of that parallel to the face of that side of the box. And then I right-click diameter, and for all of these cylinders, the diameter is going to be 1.5, enter, and the length of the cylinder will be 4, enter. Now, just so that it looks more interesting, I want you to select each cylinder and change it to a different color. All right, so I'm going to click this, and I'm going to click color. And instead of the basic 5 or 6, I'm going to go to the select color all the way at the bottom. And then I can choose from any of these, right? So I'm going to choose kind of a light tan looking thing. I'm going to go a little deeper than that. Okay. And I'll click on this cylinder and change its color. All right, so hopefully you were able to get to this point. Now, what we're going to do is continue adding the cylinders on each surface, but what I need to do is go around to the other side. So I'm going to select orbit, and I'm going to bring my mouse into the screen, hold my left click button down, and just kind of spin around until I'm in. I could have probably just selected northwest isometric, right? Now I can do these two surfaces. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the recording, and I'm going to finish. And I want you to be able to do this on your own. This is critical. You have to be able to add UCS or change and add geometry to different UCS planes to get anywhere. Okay? So I'm hitting pause. I'm going to complete it, and when I resume, mine will be done, right? And hopefully yours will too. Okay? So see you on the other side. All right, so I did all but one. I still want a cylinder down underneath it, and I'm going to, demonstrate that so that if you were having trouble, you could at least see me do one more here. So I also changed their colors. I'm going to select this one and choose a different color one more time. And let's see, I don't think I used magenta's too close to the other one. I'll try blue. All right, so to get underneath it, I need to do an orbit. Right? So I need to go below it so that I can see the surface. And I'm going to select my 3-point UCS and snap, let's say this being the 0, 0, this being positive X, and this being positive Y. Okay, now even though it's upside down and a crazy angle, it'll still work. So now I'm going to go back to cylinder, and I'm going to go from the midpoint of here to the midpoint of here, and ride that track line across so it converges with the other. There it is. And right-click diameter. Diameters are 1.5 enter, and I'm moving down and forth. Okay, so there it is, all 6 sides of the object. And it looks pretty neat, right? Well, for a simple shape. Okay, so, that is a skill which you've got to master. And if you're having trouble, stop the recording or rewind it to where I started it and practice that. You must master that to get anywhere in modeling. All right, so all of that was with the 3-point UCS. Okay? The 3-point UCS right here. There are many other ways to do that. What I want to show you, though, is the 3 that I wanted to cover today. That was the 3-point. If you look at your course topic list, that was the first one. The next one is called world. Well, if you look at where I'm at right now, I'm still in that last coordinate system, which is kind of crazy, right? Z is downward. So what if I want to reset this coordinate system back to what it was originally? That is what's called the world coordinate system. But right above the 3-point is the world system. It's got that little icon of the Earth there. And this is the easiest one of all to use. Simply click that button. And when I click that button, my coordinate system returns to its original state, right, where the ground is what it used to be and up is up and so forth. Okay? So when you want to reset your coordinate system, it's one click away with world. All right, the last coordinate system I want to cover is actually what we were in to begin with, and that is the dynamic user coordinate system. And that is one that I'm going to recommend, but the problem here is, once I show you this, you might be like, why didn't you just show me this to begin with? The problem is this will not always work. And when it doesn't work, again, the syndrome is like having too many O-snaps on, and it's just fighting you, and it's becoming frustrating. The 3-point is a tried and true fallback. That's your plan B when the dynamic one is just not cooperating. Okay, at least you know, okay, forget that. Forget the automatic one. I'm just going to do one that I know for sure will work. All right. So with that said, remember we had to bring that symbol out. It's right here in your status bar. Okay? That's the dynamic user coordinate system. To remind you that if I click on the customization button, there it is, dynamic UCS. Okay? So we brought that out on the screen, but it's off. So go ahead and click that to turn it on. Now, let's say that I want to build a cylinder right here, and I want that cylinder to be protruding outward. I'm going to do the same technique. I'm going to track off the center of this edge and this edge, but how we do that is going to be a little differently because it's the DUCS. All right, so go to the cylinder button. Now, with DUCS on, all I have to do is bring my mouse into the surface. And it's a little tough to see. I'm going to actually change my viewpoint so that this will be, I'm going to zoom in and change my viewpoint a bit, right, so that I'll get my point across here. So when I select cylinder and I go to that surface, look at my blue axis, okay? It is automatically perpendicular to this surface. Now watch what happens when I go around to the side face of this, and it activates that face. Look at my blue axis. It's now automatically pointing outward. So this establishes your work plane on the fly by positioning your mouse on the surface. Right? But here's where this becomes frustrating or a little more difficult, right? So when I bring my mouse onto the surface, I have to track to the midpoint. And if I do that on this side and I go out too far away from it, I just messed myself up. Now my wrong plane is activated. So I've got to go back to here. And I've got to slowly work my way out to the edge without going past it and activating a different surface, and then come back in, and I say, okay, I see my track point, and then slowly approach the midpoint here, and now I can go and ride those track lines so they intersect. So you have to be patient and you have to be a little more precise with your mouse. And after some practice, this is great because I don't have to do anything. I just have to be slow with the movements of my mouse, and it'll take care of the UCS for me. So now I'm going to click right here. Right, I move my mouse out, right-click diameter. I don't know if we can go 1.5 on this thing. I guess we can, yes. So let's say 1.5. And notice the Z is perpendicular off of that. And 4. Okay, so let's orbit around to the other side and do the same thing. So I'm going to orbit around. Right-click exit to get out of orbit, or you can hit escape. And then I'm going to go back to cylinder and bring my mouse onto the surface, and this time I'll track off the far end there. So I'm going to touch the midpoint there, touch the midpoint here, and then slowly run my mouse up the angle till they both intersect. Click, right-click diameter, 1.5, bring your mouse out. This is another thing. If my mouse is downward, even though I type in the length, it thinks the length is going into the surface, and you'll get a 4-inch cylinder that way. Always make sure you're moving your mouse to the direction of height, and then 4 enter. There's a lot of little things that can trip you up. It's just, getting the technique down, and you'll be fine. Okay, so we're going to work with the DUCS until it doesn't work, and then we go to Plan B, which is the 3-point UCS. Okay, so hopefully you didn't find that too terribly difficult. All right, so there's the basics. Now that we've got the basics down, now we can expand to more complex tools of modeling, and that's not even a correct word because some of them are easy. What's more accurate is we can create more complex models using the next series of tools. All right, what I want everyone to do is to go back to a southeast isometric viewpoint. And make sure that you're back to the world coordinate system. If you're at all not sure, just go up there and click on that little world thing. I'm going to do that because I can do that easy. And let's advance to the next topic here. So we're now I'm going to introduce some modeling tools. And the first one I think you're going to like because it's real easy and you can get some, good, more complex shapes. And it's called press pull. What we have to do is some setup so that we can apply this command. So I'm going to pan off to the left a little bit, and we'll use this open space. What I want you to do is to go to the regular AutoCAD line command. So I'm just picking line, and I'm just going to draw this scribbly shape here from here to here. Let's say here to here, and go back to line. So I'm drawing like a tic-tac-toe shape, but is on purpose all kinds of crooked, right? Just as long as all 4 of those lines overlap each other like I've got. I don't care what size or shape. Okay, the next thing is let's go to a polyline, right? We learned that a couple of classes ago. Polyline is in the upper left corner of your draw. And off to the open space, I'm just going to draw, a multi-sided shape of no particular size, just kind of some scribbly stuff there. And then I'm going to do a C for close. C, enter. And just so you know, you don't have to do a close. You could snap to the endpoint. But what you do have to do is make sure it's an enclosed space. Like if you're going to add hatch to it, it wouldn't work if there was an opening in it. Okay, press pull. That is a command in the same modeling panel, but over to the right. Okay, here is press pull. Select that, and like you were going to create hatch, you put your mouse inside the shape. You don't click any objects. You put it within the boundary. Okay? So when you do that, the boundary highlights. All I have to do is now click. I'm clicking nothing, but I click. And then lift your mouse up, and let's say I want this to go up 6 inches. So I'll say 6 enter. Okay, easy as that. And what's also kind of neat is, let's say I realize I need to build outward from this shape. I need to build out, let's say, a 1/2 inch. If I put my mouse anywhere within that face and click, and I move outward, I could say 0.5 enter, 0.5 enter. And that's not very big, right, compared to 6 inches tall. Okay, so I can add to existing shapes, which is kind of neat. All right, go within the other polyline shape and click, and then lift your mouse up, and let's say 1 inch, say 1 enter. Okay, and then hit enter again to complete. So polyline is as easy, press pull is as easy as putting your cursor within the boundary, clicking, and then lifting up and defining the amount. All right, so let's zoom into this last shape we've just created. And just, by the way, just so you know, when you do what we did, where you draw 2D lines and create the shape with press pull, it does not erase the shape. For example, if I click and erase this or delete this, my original boundary remains. So sometimes that can become an issue, and I'm going to show you when that can become an issue in a minute. All right, so zoom back into this thing, and let's say go to the circle command, okay? Good old circle, and bring your mouse onto the face of that. Now, remember, this is where the dynamic UCS comes into play, so it now knows we're talking about the face of that. And just go, roughly where my mouse is in the middle of the shape and click, and then move outward a little bit and click. So I've just made a circle on top of my object. All right, so we're still talking about press pull. So now let's go back up and select press pull, and bring your mouse inside the circle, and you'll see that it understands that as being a shape to press pull on top of the face of it. So go ahead and click, and now if I move up, it's going to create a cylinder. If I move down, it's going to create a cylinder. So do that. Move down till you see it going through the bottom, and then click. And what that actually did is it subtracted that and created a hole. And now think of the implications of that, how helpful that can be. Now, it doesn't always have to create a hole. Let's experiment with that. Let's go back to circle, and this time draw me another circle, right? And then a third circle. So we're drawing 2 more circles. They don't have to be the same size or shape or anything. So I now have 2 circles on that face. All right, next, go to press pull, and put your mouse anywhere inside that circle and click, and then bring your mouse down so that you can see it going through the bottom, so you know for sure it's going through. But don't click. Now remember, this is 1 inch thick. Type in with the cylinder going down, type in 0.5, enter. And what that did was create a pocket hole. So it created a hole at a 1/2 inch thick, which means it didn't go through the bottom. Okay, we're still in the press pull command. In fact, go ahead and click it again, and this time go to the second cylinder, click, lift your mouse up and say 1 enter. All right, and then a second enter to complete. Okay, now we've created a cylinder, but that cylinder is also instantly welded to that shape. It's now part of it. I can't erase that without erasing the whole thing. What if I needed to do that? Well, yeah, there's ways I could break that up. Okay, so press pull gives us a lot of opportunity to create some elaborate shapes. Okay? And realize we're doing this by drawing in 2D and then creating a 3D shape from our 2D geometry. So again, the value of mastering AutoCAD with 2D comes into play here. Okay, so there's press pull. Now, let's go to the next shape, which is what's known as extrude. And extrude, you'll see, it has similarities to press pull, but it's more involved. There are more options. All right, so here's what I want you to do. Go to top view. Select top view. And then zoom out a little bit, and I'm gonna pan upwards so that my shapes are near the top of the screen. And don't go out too far, and I've got all this space below it. Okay, with that said, select circle and come down below like I have. In other words, think of this red line as a boundary line, and I want to be below that so that when I look at my drawing from this direction, there's nothing behind it. In other words, if I draw a circle here and I look at my drawing from that direction, I'm going to see all this stuff behind it. Well, I want to go below that, and I'm going to click to begin a circle right out in space. And then right-click and diameter, and let's create a circle with a 2-inch diameter. So say 2, enter. Now I want you to copy that circle 3 times. So I'm going to go to regular AutoCAD copy, right up here. Select that circle and press enter. And then I'm just clicking off to the right here as my base point. I'm clicking right here, and then I'm moving down saying 1, 2, 3. So I've made 3 copies, and I have a total of 4. Spacing next to them is no relevance. So I have 4 of the same size circles. All right, now what I want you to do is select right side view right here, right side view. So we're going to look at this from the right. And those circles look like lines, right? Little pieces of lines, because we're looking at this in edge view. So what I want you to do is to zoom out like I have, so I'm pretty far away and I'm panning downward. Because I want to do something with this circle where I have a lot of space in this area, right? Above and to the right. So now go to polyline. So select polyline, right up here, upper left corner. And we're going to snap to the center of that rightmost circle. Now, even though we're looking at it from the edge, AutoCAD will know that it's a circle, and it'll grab the center of it. So go ahead and click right there. And then lift your mouse up. We're drawing a polyline, and let's say 30, as in 30 inches. 30, enter. So just to line up from the center of the circle upwards 30 inches. Then move to the right, and let's say 20 inches. Okay, 20. So up 30 to the right 20. Now, I'm just going on an angle. I don't care what that angle is, nor do I care what the length of the line is, other than just don't go too far away. And I'm going to click, and then I'm going to level it out a little bit and click again, right? And then enter, okay? So the first one was 30. The second one was 20. And then this one and this one, it's just a line on an angle and a straight line. And then make sure it's a polyline so it's all seen as one shape. So 30, 20. Now we're going to put a big radius on here, a big fillet. Okay, so go to the fillet command, which is right up here. I'm selecting fillet, and I have to go down to my command prompt and select radius. And let's give it, remember, it's 30 inch and 20 inch, so we're going to give it a big radius. Let's say a 6-inch radius. So type in 6, enter, and then just click on each of those lines, the vertical line and the horizontal line. Okay, so we've got a nice big sweeping radius. Okay, with that said, let's go back to top view. Select top view, and then select southeast isometric. Okay, top view, southeast isometric. And then let's zoom in to the first 2 circles, right? Click on these first 2 circles. Now, what I want to do is kind of show you what we're going to do before we do it. So I'm going to click on, here we go, extrusion. So there's 4 different types of extrusion. The first one that we're going to do is simply say extrude this, 6 inches or something, and that's just like press pull, right? And we could do the same thing with press pull. And I should make it clear, it's not exactly just like press pull. With press pull, we would click anywhere inside the shape. With extrude, we have to literally select on the edge of the shape. But for that first version, we would type in the length to extrude, and it would extrude upwards. Or I could lift up with my mouse and type in the amount. So from that part of it, it's exactly like press pull. The second option we'll have is to taper it. Okay, so we can taper that as we extrude it. And as you can see down here, a positive angle or a positive number will make it skinnier. And negative angle will flare it outwards. So positive skinnier, negative wider. Okay? And then, this is real valuable, we can draw a path line, which is what we just drew, that crazy line, 30 by 20 or whatever. And then that will extrude along that path. So if it's a straight line segments, it'll be sharp corners. If it's a radius, it'll be rounded, and we have both. Okay, then there's another kind of a path, but it's not really path. It's direction. You'll see it's the command prompt, direction. And we could pick 2 points in space, and if it's on an angle, it'll go on an angle. It won't extrude out of it straight. It'll just kind of be like leaning tower pizza effect. All right, with that said, let's do this. So the extrude button is right here. Select extrude. Select your first circle. Now, and like I said, you have to literally pick on the circle, not within it. And then press enter. And then just like press pull, lift up. And let's say I want this to be 8 inches tall. So I'm going to type in 8, enter. Okay, so again, I could have done the same thing, probably faster with press pull. So if that's all I had to do, I'd probably use press pull. All right, let's go with the next one now. So I'm going to pick extrude. I'm going to select the second circle and press enter. Only now look at your command prompt, right? I want to start making use of these options. So what we want to do is taper. I want to go with taper angle. So I'm going to select taper. Now, as I lift up or move my mouse, it can get confusing here. So I'm going to switch back to the handout and remind us that a positive angle, this will shrink at the top. A negative angle, it will flare out. Okay, so let's say we want it to flare out. So we're going to give it a negative angle. So I'm going to lift my mouse up and I'm going to say minus, let's say minus 3 for 3 degrees, which isn't a lot. So minus 3, and then what's the height? We'll say, what was the height of the last one? 8. So 8, enter. So this is your 3 degrees here where it's flaring outward. And if that was a perfectly vertical line, this would be 3 degrees right in here. Okay, so that's neat. And press pull cannot do that. So this is where you have an advantage to use extrude. Okay, let's go to extrude again and select the third circle and press enter. And this time let's go with the direction. The direction down here, kind of like path, but the path is defined by the 2 click points. Okay, so select direction, and what I want to do is snap to the center of this circle as the start point. And if you look at the command prompt, it says, okay, start point, and I'll go with the center of this. And then it says end point direction. I'm going to snap to the closest quadrant point on the top of this, which, that's the y-axis, would be the 12 o'clock spot of the top of this. So I'm going to snap to here, right? And look what it did, which was kind of neat. Okay? So depending on what you're modeling, if you needed a flat top and a flat bottom, but a cylinder between, that's a good option. And then finally, I'm going to zoom out so I can see this whole shape here. And we'll use the path option. So one more time, go to extrude, select the circle, enter. Right, and it wants to extrude straight, but we have to go to the command prompt and say path. Okay. And notice we could not only extrude it along this path, but we could also taper it while it's on a path. So we can get some really crazy results. All right, but I want just the path to be this line here. So it really doesn't matter where you click on it. I'm going to click right here. And then just like that, it follows along that path. And it's nice and round where it needs to be round. And it has the miter angles where it needs to abruptly change direction. So if you're doing piping, ductwork, or anything with that shape along a path, that's a great feature. Okay, so that's one of the big ways of modeling, right? So the press pull and the extrude are used all the time. What you want to do when you're modeling is look for things that have a profile that you can extrude or press pull. And that becomes your primitive shape, and then you start adding holes and or extrusions outward from there. Okay, so the next topic on the topic sheet after extrude is polyline, edit, join. Okay, so although that in itself is not 3D, we would incorporate that when drawing in 3D, and we already just did. We needed a polyline to create that path. If I had drawn that in regular lines and similar to that, it would only extrude it along the first arc segment, or along the first line segment. Then I'd have to extrude again for the curve, and then again and again, and you wouldn't have these nice mitered corners or mitered intersections. So polylines are a big part of the extrude process. So the reason I put edit, join, we talked about this, but, talking about it once and moving on doesn't make us experts. So I'm going to pick the regular line command, and I'm just going to freestyle draw a shape, anything, and just, do the same. And I'm going to snap to the end. So I didn't do a close, I just snap to the end. Now this is just lines, right? So if I try to extrude this, and watch me carefully, if I go to extrude, and I select this, only that line highlights. And when I lift up and click, it did something. It extruded that line. But guess what? When I select 2D wireframe, where do you see what this thing looks like? Okay, it breaks it up into a checkerboard-like pattern. And if I extrude that around, that's a vertical line. But you know what? This is what's called a surface. And a surface is a far cry from 3D. So you need to be on the lookout for that. If you extruded or even press pull, I don't think it can press pull a line. Let me try that. I've never needed to do that, but I'm going to click press pull, and I'm going to select this line. Yeah, so the same thing happens, so it'll let you do that. So if you see any vertical surface that looks like that, you did something wrong. It's not a solid, and you can't put holes in it. You can't do anything to change that. This is like an object that you're stuck with. Although if you hit shade, looks like it's a solid, but it's really a two-dimensional shape. It's got height and width, but no thickness. Okay? So make sure that this would be one solid shape. So now that I know it's a line, and I need that to be one continuous solid shape, what do? Well, what I do is what we learned a few classes ago. I polyline edit and join it to become one continuous shape. So to do that, I'd have to type in P, the letter P, and then you can see right away, I was going to say P-E, or the whole word P-E-D-I-T, but since the autocomplete popped up right away, I'd select P-Edit, or P-E. And I'd select one of these lines, and the command prompt says, hey, this is not a polyline. Do you want to turn it into one? Yes being the default, that's what I want. So I'm going to press enter. And this list pops up, and I want to join. So I'm selecting join, and I'm windowing in the whole thing. And then I press enter. Right? And that list pops up again, but I'm done, so I hit escape. Now when I rest my mouse on this, the whole thing lights up, and I can simply go to press pull and turn that into something. Right? Not that, I want to, but just to show you to follow through with that. Okay, so that's a part of this whole modeling process, is you can draw the profile in 2D with a polyline, and then extrude or press pull that up. And that's a very common way to model, because at this point, we should know how to easily draw in 2D, and then extrude in 3D, and then go from there. All right, the next topic that we're going to look at is called Booleans. A Boolean comes from what you might recall from a math class, Booleans, but in the context of solid modeling, there are three types of Booleans, and I'm going to highlight them on your screen here. It's up in the ribbon. Nice sketch there. It's up in the ribbon right here. So in your solids editing panel, there's three Booleans. The first one is called union, where we basically weld two solids together. Okay? So if you rest your mouse on there, it should say union, solid subtract, and solid intersect. If I rest my mouse on solid union, it should come up with a diagram. So if you look at 1 and 2, those are separate solids, and then when you click them both and press enter, it becomes one unified solid, and it's no longer two pieces. With subtract, you would subtract the mass of one thing out of the mass of something else. So if I wanted to, let's say architecturally, I wanted to cut a door opening, the darker color, green or gray, would be the wall, and you would just draw a block representing the door and then subtract the mass of that door out of the wall. Okay? And then intersect is the more complex one. It actually only keeps the overlapping mass. Right? So you could see what you've got there, and that's kind of a neat thing to do. So you've got the lighter green extrusion, and then the gray profile with a little S curve in it. And when you create an intersection out of those, you're left with that red shape. That, to me, for you guys, that's the harder thing to comprehend. You look at the red shape and you say, okay, that's what I need, but how do I get that? And it's hard to visualize that you would see the first and the second shape to get that third shape. Okay? That takes practice and time, but if you like this and you go at it, you'll get it. Okay, so let's experiment with a couple of, we'll do subtract, we'll do union and subtraction. So I'm going to go back to this shape here that we did earlier. So we kind of have to navigate through all of this traffic to get there. So I'm going to go to orbit, and I'm going to orbit around and then zoom in so I can see this. Now this is in 4 pieces. Okay, so we've got the 2 cylinders and the 2 wedges. So let's say I needed that to be one solid piece. Okay, so we're going to union all 4 of those things together. So when I union it, I go up to my union command, and then I simply select all 4 of these pieces and press enter. I mean, it's as easy as that. And you can see that the seams that we're holding all of that together are gone. And if I click on it, it's all seen as one object, and if I hit delete, it's all gone, right? There's nothing left to it. So union is a quick and easy way to unify all of your pieces to become one solid piece. All right. So easy as that for union. Let's pan off to the side here and do an example of subtraction. So I'm out here in open space. I'm going to go back to my box object. I'm selecting box, and I'm going to click here and do another 5x3 box. I'll say at 5, 3, enter, and I'll lift up and say 3 again. Okay, so 5x3 box, that's 3 inches tall. All right, now next to that, I'm going to go and I'm going to pick back here and go to cylinder, and I'm going to click just off the corner. I don't want to snap to it. So I'm going to click just off the corner, and I'm going to move outward until that cylinder is interfering with the box and click. And it doesn't matter what diameter it is, just go by eye. I'm going to click and then lift up so that it's past or higher than your block and click. Okay? So there's the 2 shapes, and let's say that I want to subtract the mass of this cylinder. It's like it's going to take a bite out of the box from that box. Okay? So hopefully you have those 2 shapes. If not, pause the recording, get those shapes, and then hit play. All right, so what I'm going to do is select subtract, which is the second button down, and it says select objects. Now, here's the one thing that can trip you up is if you pick in the wrong order, you're going to get the cylinder with a boxy bite taken out of it. So what I want to do is pick what I want to keep first. That's how I remember it. When I do a subtract, I select what I want to keep first. And in this case, it's the box. So I select the box, and I press enter. And then what do I want to subtract out of that? I select the cylinder, and I press enter. All right? And it takes a bite out of it, so that if I orbit around, I can see the remnants of what's left. Okay? So it's kind of a neat capability to do, and that right there gives you lots of ways of getting more elaborate shapes. So that is an example of union and subtraction. All right, the next thing I want to show you, another helpful command, is filleting. I want to round off surfaces. Okay, so while we're here, let's say that I want these three surfaces to be rounded off. Think about that. It's going to be what's pretty much complex in nature. If you were a machinist and you had to round that off, I've got all these converging surfaces coming together here, but that'll be a simple thing for us to do. Okay, so go to fillet. Now, what's unnatural for us right now is if this were a 2D fillet, we'd have to immediately go to the radius button and we'd have to define the amount. But we don't have to do that in 3D. We can simply click on the edges that we're going to fillet. So I'm going to click right here, and it only allows me to click once, but just stay with me. So I click on that edge, and now it asks me for the radius at the command prompt. I wish 2D AutoCAD did that, or they were consistent. It can throw you going from 2D to 3D. Anyway, so let's say that I want this to be a 1/4 inch radius. So I'm going to type in 0.25, enter. Now, if this were the only edge I wanted filleted, I would just simply press enter and it would curve that. But I need, like I showed you, I also want this and this to be filleted. So what I need to do is select chain. I need to chain them together. So I'm going to select chain, and it'll now allow me to pick more edges. So I pick this edge, and I pick this edge, and now I'm done. Now I press enter. Okay, so that's kind of neat how it easily does that. All right, we're going to do this in another way. I'm going to zoom out, and let's go over to this shape here where we use press pull to get this cylinder. Okay, we got this cylinder. So this is all seen as one object, right? I click on it and hit delete. Nothing other than the 2D geometry is left over. So what I want to do, which is considered a complex shape and will be easy, is along the base of this, we're going to add this fillet all the way around, right? So back to the fillet button, and I'm going to select right on the base of that cylinder. I click right there. And let's keep the 1/4 inch, right? So since I only have one edge that I'm going to fillet, I'm going to enter twice. So enter to accept a 1/4, enter to accept that edge is the only edge I need. Okay? And that gives you this really neat, smooth surface here. Okay? Look at that from the side. That's pretty neat. So now you have ways of rounding surfaces off. If I needed to round off this point, it's pretty sharp, right? I go to fillet. I would select this edge here, and let's say we'll go to 1/2 inch. I'll say 0.5, enter, and it's only that edge, so second enter, and that rounds that right off. Remember, this line's left over from our original geometry. All right, I am going to stop the recording right here, and there's a part 3. We're just about done, so bear with me. So we've got 2 more commands to cover, and then I'm going to explain the assignment. All right, so we're almost there. Hopefully you're enjoying this. I love 3D. I can't get enough of it. Call me crazy. All right.